All right, what's up, everyone? Guess what? I survived paddleboarding, and boy, do I have a story to tell. Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna. Thank you to my new subscribers. I'm up to 35 subscribers um, since I started posting every day. So, thank you to everyone. I appreciate your comments and likes. But, I did mention I was going paddleboarding today. So the funny thing is that I was really reluctant to do this, but one of the things I told myself, part of when I turned 40, and the other part was when my husband and I became empty nesters, I was going to live more. And for those of you that are empty nesters, you'll understand what I mean. When you have children, your life is going to revolve around your children. That's just what it is. There's no way around it. Or your child, if you have one child. And we had our great niece for 10 years. We were parent guardians of her. And we have been empty nesters for 3 years. So when you make that kind of a transition, it's challenging for different reasons. Because you're so used to taking care of a child, their activities, a lot of your friends you meet through these activities. That's just the nature of the beast. But paddleboarding was like nothing I would have even thought about doing 5 years ago. Would have never even considered, nothing. So here we were. A couple of weeks ago, I saw on Facebook in my CrossFit group or CrossFit gym, they were like, hey, we're doing paddleboarding on Sunday, October 27th. Anybody want to go? And I was like, oh, yeah, I want to go. But coach so-and-so, can I ride with you? So sure enough, she said yes. And the reason why I said, let me ride with someone, because I knew getting to the lake was going to be like an hour and a half, or an hour to get there. So basically, I knew if I committed to going and riding with someone, I couldn't talk myself out of it. You have to understand, I'm the type of person that's like, I like to follow rules, do things by the book. That's just me. I can be adaptable, but I tend to be a little rigid when it comes to certain things in life. But this was like out of the norm, going out of the box. So I said, all right, we're going to go. So the coach and I had been texting back and forth on Messenger on Facebook, and it was like, all right, I'll be there. I have to be at her house at 7. And I'm like, I'm not a morning person. God help me. I'm not a morning person. And on a Sunday at that. I said, all right, we can do this. We can do this. So last night, I think when I was talking to you guys, I was trying to find a cover for my cell phone so it didn't get wet. Because, of course, I grew up with can't get your hair wet while you are in the water. I'm not a strong swimmer. I knew I was going to be wearing a life vest. There was just a lot of factors. I knew I wanted to take my phone, but I was like, I don't think I'm going to be having it out, filming or anything like that. So I had my phone, got the cover, got to the coach's house at 7, and I was chill. I kept telling myself, you're not going to work yourself up and get anxious about this. You're just not. There's nothing to get anxious about. You're going to go. You're going to have a great time. And if something happens, somebody will help you. There are experts there. You just have to trust the process. And that, as someone who struggles to trust, this was a big leap of faith for me. And I just felt like God was like, you can do this. You're going to be fine. You're not going to drown. I got you. So we get there. The paddle boards are getting filled with air. And I'm just waiting for my tutorial, tell me what I need to do. The coach let me borrow a pair of her water shoes, thank God, because you can't find any apparently in October. Not even Walmart had any. And basically, they were like, all right, just attach this to your ankle, which is basically you're attaching yourself to the paddleboard. So if you fall off, like, you're not going to sink. You're going to float with the paddleboard. And I was like, all right, cool. I was the only one. I shouldn't say the only one. I had on a life vest. I was like, I am not getting on this water without a life vest. I don't care if I'm in 2 feet of water. I'm just not a really strong swimmer. I can swim, but I'm not the strongest swimmer. So I did that, and I was sitting on my bottom from the time that we had left shore to like our new location, basically, and our first stop. And at our first stop, it was like, oh, we're gonna have snacks and have a beverage. Let me tell you something. I never drink before 5 p.m. But guess who was having a beverage at 9:45 a.m.? This one. I sure did. I needed it probably. But it took all my might to get to that first stop. My leg was falling asleep. I wasn't tired from paddling, thank God. But because I'm recovering with my sciatica, like it was inevitable. But I knew after we had the snack, I was like, all right, we're going to have to paddle, but from our knees, because sitting on my bottom, it's just not going to cut it at this point. And I knew it. So after the first stop and just chatting and talking with people, which was a great thing, I was like, all right, God, I can do this. And I'm sure the people were like, why is she talking to God and thanking God? Let me tell you something, because it was nothing but God that was going to help me get through this water. Okay? And there's no motor on a paddle boat. Like, you just have to paddle yourself. And I was like, all right, God, we got this. So I got the courage. I got on the paddle boat on my knees, and I proceeded to paddle to the next spot. And when I tell you I was gliding through that water, even I was impressed, because it took everything in me to get to the first stop, sitting on my bottom, paddling and paddling and paddling. So we stopped at a second location, and that was great. It's kind of, I don't want to say it was like a cliff area, but people like to jump off of like this ledge area. I was not going to be jumping off, but it was good. But while we were there, the wind was starting to pick up. And not like a little bit. It was picking up bad. I was like, all right, if I get a head start, I should be able to make it back to the other side. So I started to leave with some other folks. But in the paddle boat, I found that I kept drifting into this seaweed moss stuff. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Okay? At this point, the whole group, I don't even see the group. There were a couple of people trying to encourage me, and they were so kind, and I just kept telling myself, don't work yourself up. Don't overthink this. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. And I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to freak out. Like, I didn't want to do any of that to myself. I honestly wanted to really give it a good try. And the folks that run the whole paddle boat like group actually ended up coming up with an idea for us to help us get back to shore, meaning me. But let me put in my Dutch Bros order, and I'll come right back to you guys. All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry, I had to get my reward, my decaf Golden Eagle half sugar from Dutch Bros. So here we go. So I think you guys are going to have an inserted clip of just the paddle boat experience. So then when I come back on, you're going to hear the rest of the story. So at any rate, I'm heading to the car wash now because that was always my plan. Oh my gosh. Sorry, dude. I didn't know what you were doing. So it's now time to get back on our paddle boats, and I was like, all right, you got this, girl. You're gonna get on the paddle boat. You're not gonna have no problems. You'll be just fine. You're confident. You know how to paddle with your being on your knees. I knew I wasn't gonna stand up because it was too windy, and the goal was I didn't want to fall. And it's funny because one of the leaders, he's like, I think you're nervous about falling in the water. And I was like, let me tell you something. I'm working through some exposure therapy right now. I'm not going to say falling in is the least of my worries, but it's the least of my worries. And if you know me, you'll know. I'm in a lake. The water is murky. I don't like to be wet. I don't like that feeling. But here we are, okay? So I'm just like, no, dude, I don't have time to be concerned in that way. I'm just trying to learn so then I can be successful. So I get back on. I got my life vest back on. I'm on my knees. And I notice me and the paddle boat are drifting. And where we are drifting to is the very area that we said we weren't going to go to because it's got too much seaweed. Okay? So I'm drifting and I'm trying to turn myself. I get myself turned around. This couple came back there. Actually, it was like two couples. One that was with the group and the other one, they were just like random people at the lake. And you ever have those moments where people are like giving you advice, but it's not really helping you because they're trying to like scare you out of the situation? And I wanted to tell this lady, like, look, your advice is not helping me. She's like, oh, you don't want to get stuck back here and fall in because it's going to be really hard to get out. And I'm like, tune it out, Deanna. Tune it out. It's serving no purpose for you at this point because it honestly wasn't. And it was just like everything she said was so negative. And it was everything that for me, why I showed up and what I was going to work through. And I was so proud of myself because I never let anything that she said, I didn't allow it to panic me. I didn't have any kind of anxiety attack. I was like, nope. The coach said this, the guide said this, and I just kept trying. Do you know, I had paddled myself out of this moss, sea moss, not once, but 3 times. 3 times. And every time I would get out, it was like, I was like, whew, I got out. But every time I got in, I don't know if you guys ever heard that tune, Castaways. It was like a kid's song, Castaway. I could just hear the tune in my head. And I was like, no, you're not going to be a castaway. No, God's not throwing you away. No, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. After the 3rd try, and I'm like, finally, like, getting away from all this moss. Now the goal is to make sure I don't hit a tree, right? And at this point, one of the guides is staying back with me, and he'd already said, I'm not going to leave you by yourself. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. And it was super kind. Like, in those moments in life, literally when you're on the water and you're surviving, you just hope that somebody will be kind enough to be there for you. Really. And I was just so thankful that he stayed back and ensured that I was okay. At this point, the other guide has paddled back to us and said, hey, we're going to go with a different plan. D, I want you to get on the back with him. We're going to close up your board because he needs to have the paddle where he can go both sides, rowing both sides. And you can help him paddle back. my first thought was, I feel like I'm failing because I'm not doing this on my own. And I said, no, you can't think like this right now. Because you just rode out of moss, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So the fact that you got out of it 3 times, to me it was like I called it a bailout, but it wasn't a bailout. It was like God giving a hand. Seriously, giving me a hand. Like, you don't have to suffer through this. You don't need to suffer. You're still going to be paddling. You're still going to feel tired. You're still in the sun. It's still windy. And you're still an inexperienced paddleboarder. Like, that's just the truth. But there was no need to be like beating myself up thinking I'm not being successful. Because the reality is, it was a successful day. I did great for a first-time paddleboard person, and for someone who does not even like getting in water like that. I didn't fall in. I had distractions. I had that lady telling me, like, oh, you don't want to get stuck back here. If I could tell y'all everything she said, that's how much I tuned her out. Because I heard her the first couple of times. But I was like, I can't listen to this mess. I can't. I got to focus on getting out of this and staying calm and keeping the peace. I guess this is my lesson in paddleboarding today. In life, you're going to have challenges. And this, I know this is a personal lesson for myself. I'm the type of person, I like to learn. I literally like to learn the hard way. I know that sounds awful. I like to have my own experiences. But let me tell you something. The older I get, the more I'm inclined to say, what was that person's experience? Oh, you're going to provide me assistance? I don't have to suffer alone? Because when I look back on my 41 years, and I know I'm young, but there were times in my life where there was a hand, and I said no, for various reasons. You know, some people would say it's pride. I don't really feel like it was pride. It was more or less like I just had to go through it for whatever reason. But I can tell you, in that moment, and being on a paddleboard, I mean, it's like an inflatable, okay? Like a really thick inflatable board. And being stuck in that moss, and the lake itself, like, walking around the entire lake is 5 miles, okay? So the idea of being able to get out and carry that paddleboard back to the cars was also not realistic. That was not an option. The only way back was to paddle back. And in my case, it was to have the help. And I just feel like sometimes God is like, Deanna, I'm giving you the help. You don't have to keep going through life suffering. Like, you don't have to keep struggling. That's not what you're here for. I have you here to do other things, but you keep taking the hard road. Like, you take the hard road every time. And it's almost like I feel like I have to punish myself because I don't feel like I deserve to be where I'm at. That's the truth. That's the truth. You know, I'm sure everyone else that went out paddleboarding today, you know, it was great. They had drinks, there were snacks, it was sandwiches, everything. It was great. It's fun. It's recreational. And I'm not saying it wasn't recreational for me, because it was. But there was definitely a message in paddleboarding for me. And it was just reminding me that I'm not alone. God's got me every single time. I just got to trust the process. I have to trust Him. I don't need to lean to my own understanding. I don't need to. But for a long time, I have. Off and on. Off and on. But I really feel like I'm in a season of my life where I'm learning to trust him. And I'm having to learn to trust people. Not trusting in a sense of like, in a negative way. But I had to trust those guides. I had to. They're experienced. They have worked with other beginners such as myself. They assessed the situation. And I feel like God was like, this is the plan. This is how we got to do it. And you know, I was better at rowing back and helping someone, or not someone helping them, but us helping each other at that point. And we got back. And I can honestly look back and say it was good. I enjoyed myself. I would absolutely do it again. I would do it again. I have no reason to say I won't do it again. I want to do it again. I want to conquer this thing. And be able to paddle out and back on my own. But I'm also okay with the fact that I didn't do it today. And I feel like part of why I wasn't going to be able to do it today is because God knows my heart. He knows I want to go back out and do it again. And it's like, if I would have mastered that today, why would I go out again? Knowing myself, I wouldn't. I would be like, oh, well, I did it, so why am I going to do this again? I wouldn't prioritize doing it again. So, anyways, clearly I have knocked day 20 of movement out of the park. I am not getting on the spin bike. I am not walking. What I'm going to do is I will be showering because I've got mud and everything else on me. And afterwards, I'm probably going to take a cat nap. And now I'll have the rest of the night to grade and work on my paper. So I know I'm going to eat some chili when I get home. And I'm just going to chill out. But it was a good day. It was a great day. And, you know, we get one life to live. And if you're really reluctant to try new things, even in this YouTube space, you get one life. What's the worst that's going to happen? What was the worst that could have happened today? Falling into the water? That's what I was thinking. I never even thought about getting stuck in moss. Didn't even think of that. I didn't even consider the fact that, hey, it could be windy on the way back and the current's too strong where you're just drifting away. I didn't even take that into consideration. What I was thinking about was the complete opposite. My feet are going to get muddy. I'm going to be so dirty, da-da-da-da-da. And let me tell you something. I didn't care. None of that crap mattered today. None of it. So, anyways, happy Sunday to you guys. I might pop in a little bit later, but I definitely wanted to let you guys know how my day went. Have a good afternoon, and I will catch you guys next time. Maybe tonight. Later.